This is the Seahawkers podcast. I'm Brandan Schultz of the Military Seahawkers, and we are getting into the draft. It's getting close. End of the month, guys. Here we go, and we are talking draft as we get there, and we're going to be talking about which draft picks, which one unlocks the Seahawks going into 2023. And here to talk about it, my good buddies, Clinton Bonner and Adam Emmert. Adam, how you doing?
Dude, I'm bright as rain. How about you, Clinton? How you doing out there?
Yeah, super strong. Back from vacation, was in Florida for 9 days, so I got a little glow still going on, and it was wonderful. It was great weather, beach, the frozen drinks, the beers, the calamari, the fresh fish, the whole thing already. So quite relaxed and continuingly getting dudes. We're like less than 2 weeks away. Less than 2 weeks, and we have this glut in a good way of these picks. So I'm fired up to talk about, yeah, man, I got some opinions on which one of these is kind of the keystone, right? That's going to unlock this 2023 season. Because heck, I think we're going to be hosting the Lombardi at the end of the year. Because why not? Let's go.
And one of the reasons why I like this question in general, because some people are kind of viewing this collection of draft picks differently, because you have the number 5 overall spot, which is kind of a bonus spot because of the Russ trade. You could argue that we won the Russell Wilson trade even without the top 5 pick. And so I hear people thinking of it as kind of a bonus kind of luxury pick, because yeah, you didn't finish there. You have a pretty good team, and it provides you with so many different options, whether or not it's in terms of risk tolerance, whether or not it's really a position of need or not going into 2023. So depending on how you view that pick may depend on how you answer this question. And there's also the second round pick. So you have 4 picks within the top 40, and it gives John Schneider and Pete Carroll a lot of flexibility going into the draft coming up.
But I do think it's I think it's 4 in the first 52, I think, Brandan, right? So not in the top 40.
Oh yeah. I was thinking top 40 once we trade out of the late second round into the early second round.
Gotcha. I think we now know what pick's going to unlock this for you there, Brandan. I think
or trading back from the 5th, because look, one of these picks is going to get traded. And so they're going to end up having 4 picks in the top 40. Count it right now.
Nice. Take that to the bank, Mama Cleo. Awesome. So Adam, what are you excited about, dude? I mean, there's plenty to talk about, but I mean, Brandan said some of the magic words there about the kind of luxury pick, right? So, and I don't know if I look at the 5 as a luxury pick, but it certainly creates this whole stable of possibilities for us. So what's got you goosed, man?
To kind of hit on that idea of the way different people look at the draft and how they're looking at these draft picks. And, Brandan, when you said that in terms of a luxury pick, that about made me have a heart attack. Like, this is not a luxury pick. Like, this isn't just like oh, hooray, we got number 5. We'll do whatever we want. It'll be great. No, this is an advantage pick. This is when you can take something that you shouldn't have and bludgeon the rest of your division and conference with it. Like, it is so important that they get guys that contribute now and can contribute later, but also help with the cap going forward by picking a dude at a premium position. I very much don't see it as a luxury pick in any way, shape, or form. In fact, there's a ton of pressure to get this pick right. Whether that is picking at 5 or maybe trading back to 7 with the Raiders and picking up a couple extra picks or another pick for next year. But no, this isn't whatever happens. Like, this is one of the more important draft picks that I've seen in the last 15 years for the Seahawks.
I think in terms of how people approach, whether it's mock drafts, whether it's the type of players at which positions they want to go to, I think it puts people into categories of whether they think it's a luxury pick or whether they think that it's what was the word that you used?
An advantage pick.
An advantage pick. And I like the advantage pick term more because it makes it sound like you're going for it now. Whereas luxury pick, it's, this is a guy who could provide us with something down the road, but maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't. And I think it's better to have that approach of attacking it, because I think that's what the Seahawks. Now, I could be totally wrong. If John Schneider and Pete Carroll decide to draft the third or fourth quarterback off the board at number 5, then they view it as a luxury pick and not necessarily as an advantage pick. And I guess that's where I'd make that differentiation.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly right. And when you were defining luxury versus advantage, and I love words, so that's a super cool way to frame it. I do think it breaks down to those factions. It's the Anthony Richardson. We're going to take him at 5. He's the best, athlete in the draft, et cetera, et cetera. And that's purely luxury. This team, I don't think we're good enough for the luxury pick at 5. And I think there's 2 other things. It's like, how old's Pete Carroll? Was he 71? Be 72 this year? I think that's right.
Doesn't matter. He's like 40.
Yeah, that's true. And do we have a top 10, top 8 quarterback on a team friendly deal for a couple of years? And I think we check the box on those and go, I'm framing it that way, which I love. I am team anti luxury pick at 5. At 5, I am full on team advantage pick. Is it fair? So Brandan, I guess, is the 5th pick overall for you? Is that the one that unlocks the draft, or are you going somewhere else down the board?
It could be. It could be the 5th. It could be the 20th. It could be a trade, because that might be what we ultimately see. For me, the pick that unlocks the Seahawks in 2023 is more of an idea than an actual position or pick in the draft, because I think what unlocks it is someone who can set the tone physically on either offense or defense. If I'm thinking of, just think of who on the team sets the tone physically for the Seahawks. Like the one guy that I go to is DK Metcalf, and I don't know if he gets the ball enough to be that guy who really sets the tone. I think with San Francisco and George Kittle, you see that he can kind of set that tone physically, but they have other aspects, defensively who have tone setters too. Mm-hmm. I think they want Jamal Adams to be that guy. I don't know if they can count on him to be that guy. And so there's guys that I look at in terms of the different positions at each spot. If the number 5 pick, could it be Jalen Carter? Could it be Devin Witherspoon if they go corner? Like, that's a guy who feels kind of like a physical tone setter, even at corner. Later on in the first round, on the offensive line, Osiris Torrance at guard. The thing is, as much as we've been harping on center, I don't know if any of the guys at center specifically in the draft are a physical tone setting type of player. And so that's why I'm kind of leaning guard. And then it could even be, who's going to replace Al Woods as that nose, who it could be a guy that they get in the 3rd and 4th round. So I think that physical tone setting player could be anywhere on the draft board.
It's really interesting because, you talk about what would unlock this team, right? And it's easy to think that maybe that would be 5. And it is important. Like I said just before, I mean, this is a hugely important pick, but I don't know if that's the thing that unlocks this draft. I don't know that it unlocks this season per se for the Seahawks. You got to take, like, the idea of taking the 4th best at a position group at number 5. Like, that seems just silly to me when you can get the 1st or 2nd best player at another premium position at 5. There's just a lot more value there to me, but it seems like whoever that is for the Seahawks, whether that is Witherspoon, whether that is one of the edge dudes, whether that is Jalen Carter, whether, whoever it is you think, right?
Miles Murphy,
right? Whoever that guy is, whoever the Seahawks have locked in on that, like, that doesn't change the rest of their draft, right? Because they know they're going to get one of those dudes. Where I think the whole thing kind of, the Rubik's Cube comes together is at 20. And if they can go out and get the nastiest guard that they can find, the best player at guard, I don't care if it's a former tackle they bring in, whoever it is, I can't evaluate the position worth a darn, so I'll leave that to the professionals. But if they do that and they get, like you were saying, Brandan, the tone setter on the offensive line, now you've got all the rest of your picks, the 2 seconds, all the way on down to address nose tackle and some of the linebacker and 3rd wide receiver, another running back, all the positions where there are quality dudes in those later rounds there on the regular. If they can get that premium interior offensive lineman around 20, I think that's just like in away we go.
Ooh, it's a pretty tantalizing vision there, right? Because you could see it literally kind of coming together, and some of the more subtle moves, the Evan Brown move, which hopefully just slides in the center, is really good. So you get that premier right guard, and all of a sudden you got your two rookie tackles going into the second year. You got D-Lou still on a rookie contract, and you have a good, cheap, probably highly effective and nasty offensive line, nasty in a good, Mrs. Jackson kind of way, Miss Jackson, if we're nasty. The thing, so I want to revisit something that Brandon said real quickly too. We talk about tone setters, and you brought up Jamal Adams, and it was really cool. What was it, yesterday or the day before? We see Jamal Adams posting his almost like his self-help videos, right? He's out there on the field, he's high stepping, he's doing skaters. Adam, don't know if you saw these vids just yet, but he's out there, man, and he's doing like drills, and he puts out a post that says like brick by brick, like he is coming back strong. 4 little vignette videos of him just rehabbing and doing super, starting to do the real athletic things, which is super cool. Because I do agree on the defensive side, Jamal Adams is that. We traded for him. We gave up that capital so we could have that tone setter. So hopefully he's back. You mentioned Kittle. I agree with you. Kittle's that dude that kind of does that for the Niners. And I was thinking about the Cardinals. Like, Cardinals don't have it, and the dude they do have wants out now, Budda Baker, who is a darn good safety, still a darn good football player. Yeah. I do wonder if we could field 11 safeties at one point and bring him kind of home. Yeah, because he was a PNW guy, right? But it'd be really nice to, in a division where it's been known to be kind of like the old NFC East. They used to be like the black and blue division. That's kind of the NFC West now. Like, we're the division that runs the football. We're the division that, since the 2012, 2013 brought the boom. And before that, the Niners were darn good and should have won a Super Bowl or two, just came up a little bit short. So I think it's really interesting. The thing I'll pivot a bit on, and I don't disagree with Adam's point that a guard's the right pick there. I agree. I think it is pick number 20. Like, that to me is the unlocking moment for me. I think the thing that unlocks the team, given the fact that we got picks all around it, is like, that's the pick I look at as luxury. That's the pick where I'm like, oh my gosh, Adam, you said the phrase earlier, like don't get the third or fourth or fifth best person, especially at 5. That seems hyper dumb. At 20, I think we have the ability, you said guard, I think you're right, to get the 1 or 2, but I think we have the ability to get like maybe the first, probably not, but very, very likely the second or third best wide receiver or the best tight end. Like, go get Michael Mayer. I think he's the best tight end here. And that's my limited knowledge of who's out there with, Kincaid and Musgrave, et cetera, et cetera. But I think like just that unlocking of that offense, man, I've been coveting that true third receiving weapon for a long time. And there are some absolute dynamic players that I think we can get at 20 or trade back a little bit. Trade back would say the Cowboys or the Vikings. Vikings go get their guy, and we still go get, say, the best tight end on the board. So to me, it's number 20, but I want to go somewhere else with it and wonder what you guys think.
It's interesting that both of you guys are kind of on the offensive side. No, yes, kind of.
Yeah, kind of. So that was like a suggestion, because I guess the point I was trying to make is that if you nail like a second foundational piece with that number 20, then you can do whatever the hell you want the rest of the draft. Now they're all luxury picks in a way, right? Like you don't have to draft so much for need. You could talk me into, Brandon, instead of offense, like, okay, get an edge guy or a D tackle, whatever, at 5, and then the third best corner is still on the board at 1, or at 20. Like, Pete does awesome with guys from the 6th. Yeah. Like, can you imagine what he does with a guy who's like consensus? Like, he's pretty damn good. And it seems like the cornerback rankings are all over the board for a lot of different people. So I wonder if there's going to be a guy still there sitting at 20. Everybody's just kind of surprised by that would be available. Then you're starting to build right up, different tiers of your defense, right? You have your defensive line, hopefully taken care of with the Jones signing. And then, whoever you draft, shoring up the defensive backfield with the safeties you have and Tariq already. And then that gives you some freedom then to play at linebacker and then also see if Bobby, Brooks, and Bush can be the dudes. So, yeah,
that's why I was being a little bit vague position wise, because even at safety or a guy that you could see moving into the slot like Brian Branch, that would be like, it seems kind of silly to have that many safeties, and you kind of hinted at that with Budda Baker, as fun as that might be too. But a guy like that could set the tone physically. And I think the guard spot being so important, which is why you went there, Adam, is that spot benefits you in a couple different ways. It can benefit you in terms of providing Geno with protection, which protection up the middle would help out this team a lot toward unlocking the offense in 2023 by giving Geno some additional time up the middle. We saw a lot of times where, the dudes had their back turned around because they just allowed the interior defensive lineman to go right by, and that results in a big play and puts your offense in a bind. But it helps out in terms of the run game too, because if you have some big dudes in the middle, you're not talking about Ken Walker trying to bounce it out the outside because he sees the middle just really plugged up. If you can give him a lane to run through in the middle and have that kind of speed and physical tone that he can set, then you're unlocking your star running back going into this season.
I'd be very happy. Let's put it that way, right? If we're at like 20 and we trade back a little bit, I love that scenario. We're at 20. We trade back a little bit. We get maybe another second rounder or a couple of picks later, and
because you have to have 4 in the top 40.
Got to get. We were established, right? That's happening, and we still go get a premium guard. I'm cool with that. I think it's a very, very good outcome. The piece for me that you're like, it's interesting. We both went offense. For me, the luxury pick of taking an offensive weapon at 20 to, I think, unlock this offense and truly make it like a top 5. I think that's what we're looking at. I think this offense could be top 5, top 7, consistent in the league if we get that third, receiving weapon finally. But that comes with the asterisk of, to me, pick 5, pick 37, pick 52. They really should be defense. And maybe at 52, you're thinking guard or center or some combo at that point. But you're sandwiching 5 and 37. And if that's like Jalen Carter and Keanu Benton, and right in the middle, you're taking, if JSN happens to fall, then I think you run the card up there at that point, or the best tight end in Michael Mayer. I think that is such a dynamic little sandwich made there where you're still really paying most attention to the defense, but you're giving yourself that Lux pick of like, you know what, we're going to it's a little treat yourself. It's a little Parks and Rec treat yourself pick that I think we've earned at this point.
Well, you kind of talk about it that way in terms of the luxury pick, and you can kind of treat yourself a little bit. But Brandon, to your point of, you draft somebody on the interior offensive line and you make that such the staple of your team that it not only, just like you were saying, man, it doesn't just unlock Geno. It doesn't just unlock Kenneth Walker. That also unlocks your freaking receivers too, because there's time for them to work going downfield. Those two, that literally unlocks. But what I think would be even more beneficial for the offense than one receiver, one guard, whatever the position would be at 20, would be to make this defense, top 15 defense. Look, the offense is going to be infinitely better if they're playing Pete Carroll football. They're not having to come back from 2 scores down and drop back and pass in a passing situation that everybody knows it's going on. Like, stay balanced, be able to run Ken Walker more and the next back that they bring in, and really pound the rock, and then be physical, and then start to, assert yourself over the game that way. So as far as that pick and it being a luxury pick and like maybe going receiver or tight end, I'm not into it. Like, they could do it and I wouldn't be mad. But receivers are a dime a freaking dozen. Like, they are everywhere, and you can find them almost anywhere. Not the one thing that scares me is Pete and John aren't great at doing that.
Yeah.
It's either a second round receiver or bust, it feels like. I'd much rather see them, shore up the interior, or just try to make that defense dominate, or at least complementary to the offense at this point. And I think that would make the biggest difference for Geno and company.
Pass catcher, not part of Adam's dynamic sandwich.
Yes, not the keys to over for Adam. That's okay.
Let's say this draft went really well, and the team progressed and all that, and then they had a I don't know, top 20 pick next year, right? That there was a receiver sitting there that fell to him that was really good, maybe the second or third best. Sure, yes, okay, yes, then. But we have too many holes in too many key spots at this point to waste it on a third string receiver.
See, I do see a little differently in the sense that the first part is to remember that could be a tight end in my world, right? That could be,
yeah, we got 3 of them.
Well, sort of, right? We got Disley who's hurt. We got 2 dudes on their last year of their contract. So yeah, we have 3 of them currently.
Mm-hmm. And there'll be tight ends next year in the draft, right?
I agree. And there'll be receivers and there'll be guards and all that stuff.
All the positions.
All they will all, wow.
It's going to be crazy.
Wow. Well, you know what? Let's make this about the 2024.
Our analysis is amazing. All 3 of us.
Always spot on. The piece for me though is like when we played Kansas City without Lockett, we looked really crappy. We looked really, really, really bad. And it's not that I'm like, oh, Lockett's older, so therefore he's going to get hurt. No, it's not what I'm saying. It's simply that I think we have a chance because we have this glut of really cool picks that we also could lock up that hopefully future Lockett by unlocking that pick too. And there's some dudes there. There's like 2 or 3 wide receivers that ought to be at 20 and maybe even trade back a little bit and they're there at 23 or something like that. We're still getting that capital so Brandan can get his 4 for 40. And I think you could serve both is with this amount of picks and the level that we're at currently. I really do think you could serve both sides of the, do the pragmatic thing and then take that one, 00 spin on the roulette wheel and see if you can catch that wide receiver who becomes your next Lockett. And for me, really unlocks what this offense could be. But I have to say, Adam, I definitely do not disagree with like, hey, if the defense could just be average or if we get that guard that just mows people down so that we can run the ball with a heck of a lot more consistency, that'll have benefit too. It's a nice way of saying it's not that Seattle can't screw this up, but it also makes me go back so strongly to don't take a QB at 5 because I think that puts the whole thing off kilter for me. And like the combinations we're all talking about, I think they all work. I think they go out the window if we take a QB at 5 and then we end up with a team that's not as good this year. And I want to win this year
and next year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because most of these guys, let's say it's Richardson. I mean, that guy's 2 to 3 years away. I mean, he's so much more Jordan Love than Patrick Mahomes, right? Like he's going to need more than just a year to figure it out. And he's just got so far to go. And Levis kind of feels the same way to me. Like that's at least a year, at least. And then what if Geno's good? And then now what are you doing? You're the Packers.
You have a good backup quarterback
with Aaron Rodgers wasting. Well, you got a good backup quarterback now. Like I just don't see the urgency there at that pick with these dudes that happen to be there. They're all fine prospects. Just they're not really top 5 prospects. The only reason they are is just there's teams that have been really bad at drafting quarterbacks and now they're beyond freaking desperate. And then when you start doing that out of desperation, it's bad. And you just end up with a poor result. So yeah, I'm with you, Clinton. Like as long as you can kind of stay away from that part of it, pick a QB early right there. Yeah, then the world's kind of your oyster.
Well, we do have a lot to watch for and something to think about then as we lead up toward because there are people who are very much in the position of picking quarterback toward the top 5. And I think we all made compelling arguments as to maybe why you don't.
Well, let's address one thing that usually the folks that are pro take a QB at 5, throw out. They're like, well, I guess you're just against the future. And it's like, well, okay, I hear you.
I'm strongly anti-future in all things.
I get their point. I mean, it's not lost on me, and it's not a terrible point either. Like, yeah, okay, if you can have that guy. Number one, is John and Pete going to draft the quarterback for the next GM and coach? Like, is that their goal? I sincerely doubt it. They're both in this 2-3 year window right now.
Mhm.
And I think Pete's probably going to be done. And then Schneider moves on to the Packers probably, or something like that. The team sells. And all of a sudden, now you've drafted a dude that you never really played and for the next potential coach. Like, I don't think that makes a lot of sense. But secondly, why can't you draft, say, like edge or corner or any of the other premium positions and call that drafting for now and drafting for the future? Because now you got the guy on the 5-year rookie scale wage at a position that commands a ton of money. So, like, what? I'm not anti-future because I don't want to take the quarterback in that spot. You get one of those dudes at 20, even if it's unlikely. Cool, man. Cool. Yeah. Fine. I'll be fine with it.
I think it's more, if someone's saying anti-future, it's because they look at Geno and don't see him as an elite top 5 quarterback. And what we've seen with a lot of these, everybody, we all want Patrick Mahomes or the next Patrick Mahomes or the next Tom Brady, or, we want the next championship caliber, multi championship quarterback to be on the team. And so I don't, to defend those people who think that we should go quarterback, it's because they don't see Geno as that tier. And I don't see him as that either. But I still see it as a team that can win with Geno, and maybe none of these guys can necessarily be that guy, but maybe they think Richardson's the closest as who might be able to be that guy, and so that's the logic around it. And so I guess I don't fault that logic at all.
Yeah. I again, I get it. It's a decent discussion. I just when I put the old thinking cap on about the likelihood of and putting it all in the bowl and being like, well, Pete's this age and they have a team that they made that was not supposed to be good, but they made the playoffs and actually gave the Niners a little bit of a scare for a half there. I remember going to halftime up on the Niners, and now they've got this sweet haul of picks because they made a controversial trade that has worked out quite well so far. I just think it is going to be pedal to the floor, like put the brick on the friggin' pedal and just Thelma and Louise this thing. And maybe we fall short. And that's okay, right? Knowing that that's the outcome. Maybe we do fall short. Maybe we get back to an NFC championship game. Maybe we get back to Super Bowl and we don't quite get all the way there with Geno in this, what is a shorter window because of his age. But maybe we do. And I think we can win. And I think the right way. So if you're cool enough with that philosophy of, we could win with Geno, not saying multiple, but we could win one with Geno. And if you're cool with that as a risk, then I think anything but 5 at QB becomes like, okay, I'm in on that path. And therefore, let's go get Carter. Let's go get Witherspoon. Let's go trade up and get Jackson Smith and Jigba and move down from 20 and go get that dude, et cetera, et cetera. That to me is where I'm putting my emotional chips is I think we could win with this team with Geno QBing. And then I think there's a dividing factor that goes, I think you're wrong. And I think that's going to be the most interesting thing that plays out over the next, hey, Brandon, 2 seasons into 2024 even.
Well, if you're telling us if you're telling us that you think that we're wrong with that idea of winning behind Geno, we can close on this. The Eagles, they almost won a Super Bowl with a running back at quarterback.
That's true. That's true. And just the last thing too, like with all the pro quarterback guys at 5, they'll act like it's almost like it's at least a 50-50 shot that these guys pan out to be a top tier guy. When you look at it over the last 10 years and you do the math, it's 19%. And that's if you're counting Lawrence from this last year as hitting as being like one of the top tier dudes, right? So at 19%, and then half of those were guys that were like the slam dunk, he's the number 1 guy, can't miss prospect type guy. And you're not getting that in this draft at 5. You're just not. So how much lower does that risk go to, at that point? And then if you look at their track record up in the top 15, Schneider is 100% at picking in the top 15 on hits. If it's not a quarterback, he's 100%. So I like the odds that whatever other, premium position they pick at 5, it's going to be a hit Whereas with quarterback, holy smokes, is it low.
There we go. 2 guarantees for this upcoming draft. The Seahawks will have 4 picks in the top 40, and John Schneider guaranteed to hit whoever he picks in the top 15.
No QB.
And I think with that,
There's only one thing left to say.
go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.